Welcome to PWS United, a podcast for the Prader-Willi syndrome community, brought to you by PWSA USA. This podcast gives the latest news in research, advocacy, and family support by bringing together staff, volunteers, PWS treatment specialists, biotech and pharmaceutical representatives, caregivers, family members, and individuals with PWS. Our goal is to share education, awareness, and resources with those living with PWS and their supporters. Join us in our mission to enhance the quality of life and empower those affected by Prader-Willi syndrome.
Hello, everyone. I am Dorothea Lantz. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at PWSA USA and a proud mom in our PWS community. In today's episode, we are sitting down with a sibling of an individual living with Prader-Willi syndrome to explore a little bit of what sibling advocacy looks like at the kitchen table, at the school, at the state house, IEP meetings, and just kind of everyday moments that change how our community shows up. And today I'm extremely excited to be joined by Kady Sweeney, who is sister to Klara. Klara is 15 years old, living with PWS. And I'd just like to give a quick note for our listeners who are tuning in for today's podcast that this conversation may touch on sensitive topics like medical experiences and perhaps some challenging behaviors. So please take care while listening. Kady, thank you again for agreeing to be interviewed today. And I know that with our sibling podcast series, we've had so many individuals say how exciting and how happy they are to be able to hear about the sibling shared experience. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about, what this journey has looked like for you as a sibling to Klara.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dorothy, for having me with you today. I am beyond excited to be able to not only spread awareness about PWS, but also hopefully find some individuals who share a similar story or background as myself. Like you had already mentioned, Klara is 15 now. I'm 20 myself. So we have a 5-year age gap. And I do have to say I was very blessed in the fact that my mom actually worked in special education before Klara was born. So my whole life I've been around special needs kids and individuals. My mom used to even do overnight care for kids with disabilities. So when Klara was born, of course it was different because she was my sister, but having that experience already in the background kind of helped me ease into life with Prader-Willi syndrome. And yeah, today Klara, like I said already, she's 15 years old now, and if I could just say one thing about her is that she is an inspiration to me, to my family, to everyone she meets. She is currently working to be the first girl with Prader-Willi syndrome to do the Ironman when she turns 18. So just a couple more years, she wants to do the Ironman, and she trains hardcore almost every day of the week, and she loves it. And seeing someone who was born with weak muscle tone and all the setbacks that Prader-Willi can offer, it's just so inspiring to see my sister push through that and do what she does. I myself, I'm finishing up a college degree in aeronautical science with flight, and the reason I partially work so hard is just because I see how hard my sister has to work for everything in her life, and that really inspires me to work hard myself. So one more thing, a little bit more about my family is Klara and I were actually born over in Germany, and our dad, he is now retired military. So something that's a little bit unique about our life with Prader-Willi syndrome is that we've moved around a lot, which can be very difficult in terms of finding the right medical care, therapies, everything like that for Klara, which I'm sure we'll get into later in this podcast.
That's incredible. I don't know where to start with everything you just threw at us, but having her, compete in Ironman is incredible. And the fact that she is an inspiration to you is truly amazing. And, for any of our listeners who know the Sweeney family, none of us are surprised. You guys are just incredible. And we all love Karen so much. And I know that you all have just been incredible champions within our community. But Klara is absolutely an inspiration. Let's go back a little bit because I know that you were talking about how your mom was dealing with special education before Klara was even born. Do you remember what that first memory was when you realized that your sister had maybe you didn't know it was PWS, but you knew that something different was going on? And can you talk a little bit about, like, what that was like for you?
I have to say, when Klara was first born, I didn't really catch on to much. I mean, I was only 5 years old. I just remember, my mom being pregnant and me being excited about becoming a big sister. And then when it was time for Klara to come into this world, I went to stay with my aunt for a while. And I didn't know, what the average time was before I could meet my sibling or anything like that. But my mom told me that while I was staying with my aunt, I was at the park and I was telling everybody at the park how I'm about to be a big sister. And I think the moment it became clear to me that something was wrong was when, I came to visit my parents in the hospital with Clara, and they just seemed really worried. And I was just excited. I didn't really know what was going on. But the first moment where I truly realized that Clara was not a typical birth, so to say, was when I believe Claire was around 1 when, it became evident that she needed to be put on the human growth hormone. So the representative came over, and again, I was 5, 6 at the time, so my memory's a little fuzzy, but I remember watching my parents in the kitchen with the representative giving themselves a shot. Obviously, it wasn't actual growth hormone, but in order to give the growth hormone to my sister, they had to first practice, using the needle on themselves so that they're not hurting my sister. And in that moment, I realized, like, okay. And then starting from that day forward, Clara got that shot every single night, and she still gets it to this day. So I think that was kind of the first moment where I truly grasped that, something isn't quite normal because obviously I never got any injections every night. So I'd have to say that was my first memory of something that's typical to Prader-Willi syndrome.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So as you've gotten older, how has your understanding of PWS changed? And when do you think it was that you realized what PWS actually means for your particular family? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So now that I'm older, I definitely have a big understanding and grasp of what Prader-Willi syndrome is, what it means to me. But, as a kid, all I remember is just so many medical appointments, all these different therapists coming over to our house and making Clara cry every day because they were making her work so hard so that she could develop the muscle, and even just eating for her was difficult, or I guess I should say breastfeeding and drinking and everything. I started developing more of an understanding of what was going on in those moments when Clara was crying with the therapist. And then, as she's getting older, my family and I we're very close. So I always went along with my mom there as a family, and that really helped me also just feel included in Clara's care because she's my sister. I care about her. She's my everything. She's my best friend. So, over the years, I just kind of grew into this trying to understand what my sister is going through because there's this grief of, my sister is struggling. I want to help her, but I don't know how. So, around when I was around, I want to say 9 or 10, I actually, did a lot of school projects about Prader-Willi syndrome. A lot of my teachers would give us sort of creative freedom on what we wanted to research. So I spent a lot of time doing a lot of research about what PWS really is, what it entails, what these kids are going through, and it just it just made me really sad for my sister, and I tried to do everything that I can to help her. And now that I'm older, I've spent a lot of time also fundraising for Prader-Willi syndrome, advocating for kids with PWS because, like I said, I care about her so much, and I care about every kid with PWS now that I have a full grasp of what Prader-Willi syndrome really is.
So, out of everything that you've learned and experienced with PWS, is there something that you can point to, maybe a time in your life where you have felt really seen by the people around you, or maybe a time that you feel like you maybe have been the most misunderstood when you're trying to describe what this disease state is and what it's like for you and your family?
Let's go with the time I felt the most seen first. Every other year there's the National Prader-Willi Syndrome Conference. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the past one in Arizona. I have just always enjoyed going to those because, a lot of other siblings show up and we can share our experiences with Prader-Willi syndrome and laugh about how some of the things that we deal with on a daily basis, like going into a moment where I was just frustrated, there was a time where my mom, Klara, and we went, to Starbucks and we were sharing, these egg bites of some sort.
Oh,
I
we
don't
love
remember exactly
those. Yeah, the sous vide egg
the
thing that they do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and, I was driving 'cause I think I was 16 at the time, and, I was stopped at a red light, and I handed the last piece of the egg bite into the back seat to Clara so that she could finish it, and, at the same time, I turned around and I said, "Clara, now don't eat the wrapper, okay? Just eat the egg bite, don't eat the wrapper," and then simultaneously, I got honked at because the light had turned green, but I didn't right away because I was explaining to my sister how we don't eat the wrapper of an egg bite. And in that moment, my mom and I, we just had to burst out laughing because we were imagining, oh my gosh, if I had to explain to the person behind me that I was explaining to my sister how we don't eat wrappers and that's why I didn't go at the green light, like nobody understands that other than obviously my immediate family and these siblings that I meet, or not just the siblings, but families in general that I meet at these conferences. So I was able to incorporate a little mix of both of your questions into that.
Actually, that was perfect because I can tell you from a parent perspective, like a bunch of us laugh all the time and we'll send little memes to each other. It's like, tell me your kid has PWS without saying they have PWS. And having to look in the back seat, getting honked and saying, hey kid, don't eat the wrapper. That's it. That's that you hit the nail on the head with that, Katie. That was amazing. I mean, you know what? When when people talk about like telling your stories and sharing, these life experiences, I like to tell people, you know what? I'm either laughing really hard or I'm crying really hard, and there's really no in between when it comes to PWS. That was a laugh really hard moment. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Well, and I have to say, Clara is so funny. Some of the things that this kid says now, and now that she's hitting puberty too, because she's a snazzy little 15-year-old now, it's just so funny. And I love it. Some of the comments she says to me the other day, I was having coffee with my mom and she walks in from school and I'm like, "Oh, hey sis, how was school today?" She's like, "It was fine. Why do you ask?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just wondering about your day." She's like, "Why do you care?" I said, "Well, you're my sister and I love you and I want to talk to you." She's like, "That's funny because yesterday you were at work and I wanted to talk to you." It's just, stuff like that.
So
Okay.
she's a teenage girl.
She's a teenage girl now, right? And I'm
Yeah,
sorry I wasn't there when you did wanna talk to me, and now but those are just moments that feel so typical to me that I just love experiencing 'cause, you know, kids with Prader-Willi syndrome oftentimes it's not as common to have those little moments of normalcy, right? And I love seeing these typical teenage behaviors in her because it's in the midst of all the not normal, it's so nice for me to see moments of stuff that I used to say when I was her age, you know what I mean?
exactly what you mean.
And also these little typical sibling rivalries that we have, and sometimes I push her buttons on purpose because it's normal for siblings to butt heads every once in a while, or sometimes when I come home, she'll tackle me onto the couch because I'm her sister and that's what she wants to do, and I love little moments like that.
I totally understand. I don't think I could have put that any better myself. Those having those typical moments of normalcy is what so many of our families need and crave. So it's really nice that you're able to articulate that and that you get that and that you know which buttons to push to make that happen.
Yes.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about sibling advocacy. I know that you've been super involved in the community. You've been involved in the advocacy work that we're doing kind of in the Florida state level and on federal level. Can you talk to me a little bit about like what made you decide that you wanted to get involved in being like a sibling advocate? What does that look like in your life? Is there a moment that you can point to that, makes you proud to be involved in the advocacy work that's going on? And if you could change one thing from a policy perspective, I don't we can figure out what that looks like, but like what would that be? I just threw like 5 questions at you, but figure find one that works for you.
So let me start with some of the things that I've done as a sibling. It breaks my heart to see these kids and even adults treated differently because my sister, she can do everything that anyone else can do, right? And I mean, look at her. She's running a half marathon tomorrow. It's insane. While I'm still sleeping on a Saturday morning, my sister, who is 15 years old, is going to be up and running. And this brings tears to my eyes because I'm just so proud of her. She's going to be up and running a half marathon. And it just breaks my heart that people who aren't involved with the special needs community don't seem to realize the potential that these individuals have. And that's something that I have felt from a very young age, let's say maybe 9, 10. And, ever since I felt that, I just want people to know and to see and to understand. And a big part of that, of being able to have the means to spread that word, is fundraising. So when I was around that age, I actually learned how to sew, and I partnered up with this was when we were living in Colorado. I partnered up with a local coffee shop called Special Grounds, which was opened by a mom to a special needs kiddo.
We
It
know
was
Special Grounds, it's great.
Oh my gosh, you do? Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I love them. So I actually partnered up with them and I sewed different things. I sewed pillows. They're actually called reading bones because they're kind of shaped like a bone and they fit perfectly around your neck. I sewed little trinkets. I made little angel charms, little bracelets, stuff like that. And I sold them, and 100% of the money that I made, I actually donated to the PWS Colorado chapter. Furthermore, I don't know if you there's a woman who lives in Colorado, her name's Rachel, she has a son with PWS, his name's Jude, and every year she does a turkey trot in honor of Prader-Willi syndrome and as a fundraiser to PWS. So one year, I actually had my own booth at this turkey trot, and I made tutus and the reading bones, and I had a full booth. I sold out completely, and again, all the money that I made went towards Prader-Willi syndrome. And then in terms of physical advocacy, like I said, every time my teachers are now in college, even my professors give me freedom with what I'm allowed to write about or present about or spread awareness about, it's Prader-Willi syndrome. I have done so many presentations, reports, and everything about PWS just because it's so rare. Not a lot of people know about it. And I kid you not, every single person in the room when I talk about Prader-Willi syndrome has no idea what it is. And it's kind of my mission to show people that yes, Prader-Willi syndrome sucks. It really sucks what these kids have to go through, but look at their potential. I also work at a restaurant now, and Klara is one of my favorite topics to talk about and again share about what she can do and what she does. So despite this diagnosis, she pushes through, she perseveres, and look what she can do. And then I forgot the last question you asked me.
Yeah, you know what? I forgot it too because I'm over here crying.
I know. Me too.
There's so much passion in what you're doing, and there's so much love in it.
So I actually saw that you guys are doing a fly-in into DC in May, and I wanted to ask you how I can be a part of that because my birthday is actually in May, and the biggest birthday gift for me would be to be able to be a part of this and make some change. And one of the biggest things that really sucks for Klara and my family is schools and how they treat especially kids with PWS and the whole food safety in the classroom. Klara has had to switch schools so many different times, and I know that this might not be exactly what the Washington fly-in is about, but you asked me one of the policies I would change, and that would be if a kid has a peanut allergy in the classroom, right? Nobody's allowed to have anything peanut related in the classroom. Prader-Willi syndrome, another way of looking at it is almost as a food allergy, right?
Allergy to food. You hit the nail on the head right there, Kady.
But in especially in school, food is a reward for everything.
Everything.
My sister, has kind of sort of an allergy towards food, and they still bring in food into classrooms for a reward, for birthdays, for this, for that. But again, if a kid has a peanut allergy, nobody's allowed to bring peanuts, and they get in big trouble if they do. So that's something I would really want to put into the
Yeah. It's now listen, that is I think the best thing that you can do as a sibling advocate is talk about that. So many of our parents who go and speak with schools talk about that. And the example that you used about peanuts, and you have to look at food as an allergy for PWS, is exactly what I do as a parent when I talk to my son's school. And when we were deciding what school my son was going to attend and had to make the decision, one of the reasons that we decided to put him in the school where he is because they allowed us to come in and give a presentation to the entire staff and talk about food. And for our families, I know that especially for our families who are just starting school, you are so correct, Kady, because our kids learn to do everything. With an example of food, it's how many pieces of pie are on this plate? What color is this apple? They learn math, they learn shapes, they learn colors, everything with the food association. And that is not fair to our population. So, what you're saying is extremely powerful and something that needs to be shared. But as far as our DC fly in, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to put in a good plug. This will be our third DC fly in, but it is an incredible program. We have a full policy day where we bring in featured speakers and we have some featured panels. We break out into teams. We do all sorts of great things. And then our second day is when we do our Hill meetings. And something that we've learned from the last two DC fly-ins that we've had is that this year we're also going to have a respite room because it's a lot. People don't always realize that when we do events like this, it's different than other PWS events. There's a lot of walking, there's a lot of talking. And I think, as you share your story more and more, you realize how emotionally draining that experience can be. And this is an opportunity where we encourage our families to bring their loved one with PWS because, like what you said, people are always underestimating our loved ones living with this disease or people with special needs in general. And it's really important that we make sure that our loved ones know that their voice is the most important voice. And we have been able to provide them with an opportunity to speak directly with policymakers and share their stories directly with policymakers through our DC fly-in event and some of the other state advocacy stuff that we do. I actually just got an email earlier this morning from one of the outreach companies that we did a lot of work with for priority review vouchers, thanking us for all the work that we've done because it looks like it's going to progress on the Senate side due to some of the stories that our loved ones with PWS have shared. So it's a fantastic event. It's a lot of work. It's draining, but it's one of the most rewarding things. I'm biased. It's one of the most rewarding things that I do as a family and a mom. So yes, we would love to have you. Please come.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Like I said, that would be the biggest birthday gift to me is to be able to be a part of that and, share my stance and my perspective and making some change because like I've said many times in the course of the last 30 minutes is these individuals with PWS are nothing short of amazing, phenomenal, and inspiring. And I just want to work my butt off to make sure that the whole world sees it and not just the families that are directly related to these individuals.
Thank you so much, Katie. You're amazing. We're going to clone you. Um, I'd like to talk a little bit about what next steps might look like for you because you're 20, your sister's 15. As both of you are aging and you're getting ready, I mean, you're almost ready to join like a full career world. You're almost not a student anymore. As you think towards the future, like what your future might look like, what your sister's future might look like, how does PWS factor into your thinking? Like, do you have anything that worries you, whether it's for your future or Klara's future as you're growing up and, entering this whole new phase in life? How are you approaching some of these conversations with your sister also aging into adulthood? What does that look like for you?
So, as I mentioned towards the beginning of this, I am currently finishing out a degree in aeronautical science with a minor in unmanned aerial systems. And I have an associate's in air traffic control, and I have a little bit under a year left in my flight training. So, the biggest reason I chose this career is yes, I love airplanes, I love flying, I love getting paid to see the world, hopefully, but also because when I think about my future, I kind of think of it as Klara and we're together for life. I don't I don't want her to end up somewhere where she isn't taken care of, because as much as it pains me to say this, my parents aren't going to be around forever. And the aviation industry right now, it's really thriving. There's a lot of opportunity for really high salary careers, which is what I'm aiming for, because my goal and my one plan in life is to be able to take care of my sister, whether that means finding a really good and even creating my own Prader-Willi community where, individuals with PWS can live and be safe, or even, having her live with me, or, I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna look. I just know that I want to be the one to take care of my sister when, my parents are no longer able to, or even, right now, I love helping taking care of my sister. I love helping out with her training and taking her to her appointments and things like that, especially now that I have my own car and can drive and things like that. And I have a boyfriend. We've been together for 3 years, and he's very well aware of the fact that my sister and I are a package deal, because no matter what, I'm gonna take care of my sister. So, like I said, in terms of my career, my goal, I've been working my butt off in college for 3 years now. I only have 2 semesters left until I graduate, and then I plan on going straight into the airlines as soon as I have the hours that I need flying and, making money. Hopefully, that's the plan. And then, when I'm done with that, I do plan on using my degrees that I've earned and settling down and finding a good place to help take care of my sister. That's the goal I have in life, yeah.
That is amazing. And I have to apologize because I'm you keep making me cry.
I just wanted to say one more thing. So pilots normally retire at around 60 to 65, depending on the airline. I also have this dream of starting a nonprofit charter company that helps families, even with PWS individuals or just any, disability or medical need that they might have, and being able to charter them nonprofit to specialists. Like, we have Dr. Miller here in Gainesville. Not a lot of Prader-Willi individuals have the benefit of being able to see her on a regular basis. So once I'm all done with my career and I have the means to do so, I would love to start a nonprofit to be able to not just any normal flight to these specialists, but also make it fun for these kids, because they go through so much with all the medical poking and prodding and just their daily stress and anxiety and things like that, but make it fun, kind of like a party bus, only a party plane to go
Are you
visit
playing?
this. Yeah. So that's another reason I wanted to go into aviation, was because that I've always had to, not had to, but my parents and we've done a lot of traveling for Klara, not just for medical reasons, but also for her training. I mean, just this weekend she's up in Orlando, which is about an hour away from us. So I would love to be able to help not just Klara, but everyone out there get to see who they need to see.
So you are amazing, Katie. And you know what? When the time comes, we might be able to hook you up with some companies that are doing stuff like that. Like I know that some of our families use angel flights right now. We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
I'm going to close it out. This has just been such an incredible conversation. I want to close it out with an opportunity for you to share something with other siblings who might listen in on this podcast. If you had a message or something that you could relay to another sibling who might be out there dealing with a sibling with with PWS, and maybe they're just starting this journey, or maybe they've just been introduced with this journey, or maybe they're frustrated with this journey, like what would you share with that sibling?
I mean, the first thing that comes into my head is that not every day is the same. Every day is different when it comes to certain behaviors or things like that. But my biggest advice is to just hold on to those moments of normalcy that I was talking about earlier, and also reach out for support. We have such a strong PWS community. I actually, along with Rookie Penta, we started a sibling Facebook group where siblings are allowed to go in there and just vent, cry, share accomplishments, anything like that. Reach out, because, like I said, this is a strong community. We all stick together. And that's what I honestly love about PWS, is the fact that I've met so many amazing people along the way that really share my experiences of laughter, crying, frustration, but, again, overall, just inspiration. And I also encourage these siblings to make it a point to join in on these gatherings that are happening all over. I know for a fact the U.S. I mean, just not too long ago, my mom, who's on the PWS chapter Florida board, she and everyone else, they hosted the Brevard Zoo get together, and it's just make it a point to come along to these things. And I myself need to get better at doing that. Like I always love these events and to just meet people and connect. And that's really the biggest advice I can give to siblings is you're not alone in this, that all of us get frustrated. All of us have to laugh sometimes about some of the situations we find ourselves in or some of the things our siblings do. And that's okay. But at the end of the day, like I said, not every day is the same. Some days are better than others, but, just keep in mind it's your sibling and you love them always, no matter what.
I think that's probably the best advice that you could give anybody. Thank you so much, Kady. This has just been such a great conversation. I cried the entire time. So thanks so much for that. It has been wow. But thank you. It means so much for siblings like you to be able to share these experiences and just normalize what this world can look like because we know it gets crazy and we know it's hard for people to talk about sometimes and that some of these moments are really hard. But then there's those moments that are really great, like you shared earlier. So thank you so much for making yourself vulnerable and for sharing your story with the rest of our community. And just want you to know that we are always here for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and allowing me to be a part of this. And, whatever I can do to help, just let me know because I want to do more.
I love that. I love when people say I want to do more because there is always more. Kady, with that, I'm going to invite any other siblings who have an opportunity to listen into this podcast. If you would like to share your story or talk a little bit about your experiences, growing up with a sibling who's living with PWS, we would welcome you to reach out to us at info@pwsausa.org or leave some comments in the chat, which I think is available when this gets published. We would love to be able to talk to you and also share your story.
Thank you for listening to this episode of PWS United. If you want to learn more about Prader-Willi syndrome and how PWSA USA is making strides in advocacy, family support, and research, visit www.pwsausa.org. And while you're there, we encourage you to sign up for our Pulse email newsletter to stay informed about the latest news, resources, and events. Don't forget to subscribe to the PWS United podcast so you never miss an episode. Our team is always available to support families and their loved ones living with PWS 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can call us at 941-312-0400 or email info@pwsausa.org. Catch a new episode next Tuesday, and until then, have a great week.